right, well, now let's turn to what has been some of the darkest few days since the aftermath of October 7. And a warning, what we're about to speak about is distressing. Over the weekend came the traumatic news that baby Kfir and his brother Ariel were murdered in cold blood with bare hands. Yes, Palestinian terrorists violently murdered a simply beautiful 9-month-old baby and his 4-year-old brother. This is the Palestinian resistance, murdering innocent children who had everything to live for. The events over the weekend have been unimaginably horrific, coming as a series of blows. The coffins with Kfir and Ariel and 84-year-old Oded Lifshitz were locked without keys. Then the body Hamas claimed was Mother Sharri wasn't Sharri at all. It was an unnamed anonymous Gazan woman. So in death, cruel terrorists separated Sharri from her beautiful babies. And the Bibas family were left wondering, where is Sharri? Can you even begin to imagine Yarden Bibas's torment? Hamas gave various excuses before eventually claiming to have found Sharri's actual remains, which were then returned to Israel. And Israelis, in a powerful sight, came out at 2:45 in the morning to stand on the streets out of respect as her coffin made its way for forensic identification. The autopsy showed that, like her children, Sharri was killed by Palestinian terrorists, not by an Israeli airstrike. The only word for all of this is unbearable. It's an unbearable thought. A beautiful, loving mother and her 2 little children violently murdered in a sadistic act of cruelty. This is a movement celebrated by much of the West. Pathetic international institutions, university students, the left, and the fraudulent feminists. I don't need to name them, you know who they are. This murder was celebrated without shame by Palestinians. Yes, by civilians. Have a look at families and their children enjoying this depravity, celebrating on the coffins of Kfir and Ariel. Those little boys didn't deserve that fate, and they certainly didn't deserve to have despicable civilians celebrating around their dead bodies. These scenes are a major wake-up call. This is not just a Hamas problem, this is a Palestinian problem. The Wall Street Journal's editorial raises the question. The coffin propaganda underlines the challenge of de-radicalization for any post-war plan for Gaza. Underlines the challenge of de-radicalization. How do you de-radicalize an entire society? Now, the truth is we don't know what percentage of Palestinians celebrate this cruelty and support Hamas, but we can see clear as day that a level of support is certainly there. We know that the Palestinian education system indoctrinates hatred against Jews from birth. Their state-run media spreads hatred as well, supporting terror and martyrdom. And the Palestinian government, yes, the one Penny Wong wants to recognise with statehood, pays the families whose sons commit terror attacks with a lifelong salary. It's known as pay for slay, and its financial reward for terrorism against Jews. This is why many commentators, experts, and officials are now concluding that Gaza and perhaps Palestinian culture is broken. It's why the Albanese government should never have rushed through nearly 3,000 visas for Palestinians, because it would be a surprise if any of them were not anti-Semitic. Now, this grotesque spectacle of the coffins first emerged on Thursday. We spoke about it on the show Thursday night. And then it was front page news on Friday. It wasn't just front page news here, it was major news around the world. And many of you, many Australians were devastated about it. Many of you have shed tears about this. Yet, our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, apparently wasn't too upset about it. Because when he was asked about this on Friday morning by my friend and colleague, the political editor of news.com.au, Samantha Maiden, Albanese appeared seriously lacking in empathy.
I did want to end on a very grave and disturbing development internationally today that has been very distressing to see the vision that has come out of the handover of the Israeli hostages, the news that we've had that Hamas has broken the ceasefire deal and they have handed back coffins, including one that is not the mother of those children. Absolutely devastating news. What's your reaction to that?
Well, Hamas are a terrorist organisation that have engaged in a range of activity, not, of course, beginning on October 7, but well before then, that engaged in activity that is shocking, that is worthy of condemnation.
So, did you notice there that he didn't answer her question at all? He didn't speak about the Bibas family. He didn't speak about the coffin spectacle or Sharri's body not being there. He just gave a bland condemnation about Hamas. In fact, so bad was Albanese's response that Samantha Maiden interrupted him and said, "But on a human level, showing some emotion, how do you feel about this?" And Albanese admitted that he actually didn't know what she was speaking about.
That is shocking, that is worthy of condemnation, which is why they should have no role in the future.
But on a human level, to see that footage and the spectacle that they put on, what was your reaction?
Well, I haven't seen it, Sam, with respect. But, you know, this is the atrocities that have occurred from October 7, quite rightly, have been condemned by everyone across all of, certainly, the major political parties. And, you know, it's horrific what people have gone through.
This was global news from a day earlier. It was front page of The Australian that day. This was incredibly distressing for so many Australians and Americans and Europeans and people right around the world, and he hadn't seen it. He didn't know about it. He couldn't speak about the Bibas family. He didn't shed tears like so many of us. In fact, as far as I can see, Albanese hasn't spoken about the Bibas family at all. But on Friday morning, seemingly adding insult to injury, a 90-minute podcast was released where Albanese spoke to Abby Chatfield. Yes, Abby Chatfield, who said she'd never platform a Zionist. A Zionist is someone who supports the existence of Israel. If you're not a Zionist, you support a one-state solution, which is to get rid of the Jewish homeland. So we should all be Zionists. How shameful of the Prime Minister to agree to a podcast with someone like Abby Chatfield. Now, back at the Adelaide Advertiser conference on Friday, Samantha Maiden then asked Peter Dutton the exact same question that she'd asked Albanese about the Bibas family, and listen to how Dutton answered that question.
Well, I think it's barbaric. I think it is evil to the core, and I think we are right to stand with Israel as the only democracy in the Middle East, and we condemn without reservation the acts of these people who I went to the music festival site. I went to the area where people were slaughtered and saw the footage, the raw footage of women being shot in the street, rapes. This is a level of evil that has to be condemned by every decent person. And the thought that babies were abducted and it doesn't bear contemplation what happened between that period and their death, or for the women who have died in that cave network, in that tunnel network.
And he went on, his answer was too long to play here. Now, the Bibas family have captured our hearts here and around the world. It's been front page news of the New York Post, other papers as well, the Daily Mail. Monuments and buildings around the world have been illuminated in orange to honour the Bibas children, famous for their red hair. This is a statue in Rio de Janeiro, lit up in orange. So were buildings in Belgrade, even the Israeli embassy in Beijing, China, along with monuments in Rome. Here's the Trans-America Pyramid Center in San Francisco in orange, and Beverly Hills City Hall in Los Angeles. In New York, there were 14 landmarks lit up in honour of Ariel and Kfir, including the Empire State Plaza and even Niagara Falls. In Australia, however, our governments have done nothing, haven't lit up any monuments at all. And it deeply saddens me that we don't stand in solidarity with Israel like this, which is why I've asked all of our guests tonight to wear orange and why we have these balloons. The Bibas family funeral will be on Wednesday. It's a private event just for the family, but it will be broadcast live. And we'll hear from Yarden for the first time then. Israelis will line the streets along the route to the funeral to pay their respects to a mother and her babies who suffered intolerable brutality, all by a movement that the West paints as victims, when we can all see plain as day that it's a murderous, misogynistic, and morally indefensible evil regime that must be brought down. There can be no peace in Israel or the region while Gaza remains a terrorist stronghold.